Coming up on Tech News Today, Google wants to help you for a small fee. What's Dropbox scheming with all these app acquisitions, and why Twitter is not the next newspaper? All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday. Remember the 5th of November, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. With over 28 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 25% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code TNT1113. And by ProXPN. ProXPN is a virtual private network that allows you to use the internet the way it should be, anonymously and without oversight. For 20% off your new account, go to proxpn.com/twit and use the code TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Aya Zakhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And we spend our morning reading all the tech news so you don't have to. You can just download the most important stories of the day right now and be the smartest person at your tech cocktail party, starting with the top 10 stories of the day, the News Fuse. People still do tech cocktail parties? I don't know. Let's start off with snow leaks or Snowden fallout or climb into the snow den. Anyway, 3 leaks. Italy's L'Espresso reports the UK's GCHQ and US NSA tapped the net from Britain's Ios Nikalos intelligence station on Cyprus. Cyprus is a hub of several fiber optic undersea cables. Leak 2 from the UK's Independent reports, probably not that surprisingly, that the GCHQ and NSA spy on the net from diplomatic buildings, most interestingly to Angela Merkel in Berlin. And leak 3 is a follow-up. NSA Director Keith B. Alexander denied the NSA had access to Google or Yahoo servers, neatly skirting the question of taps on fiber. The Washington Post responded with more details that the NSA does access Google and Yahoo's internal data center communications. And that's your Snowden leak roundup. Let it snow, then.
Google Helpouts, the Hangout-like video chat where experts are matched with people looking to gain knowledge or level up on a particular skill, has launched, and Google's calling it real help from real people in real time. Helpouts uses your Google Plus identity, wallets, payment features, and Hangouts video tech to service a marketplace of providers. They've already assembled a collection of about 1,000 brands, like, for example, Sephora for cosmetic tips, and individuals so that the service is up and running from day one.
The Jeff Bezos biography titled The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon is the subject of a 1-star review at Amazon.com. Now, normally that wouldn't be news, but this review is written by Jeff Bezos' wife, Mackenzie Bezos, who says the book is full of inaccuracies. She also says the book ignores positive aspects about Amazon to build a more dramatic book. The author, Brad Stone, says he spoke to 300 people to create his work and said of the review, quote, "There are details of this story that only Jeff and Mackenzie Bezos can know. If they point to errors, I'll gladly correct them," end quote. Amazon VP of Global Communications Craig Berman had a rebuttal to that, gave a statement to TechCrunch, and said, quote, "By beginning with Bezos said, Stone obligates himself to get it right."
Bezos never said tenacious. Verizon announced its own branded tablet called the Ellipsis 7. Specs are light, but the 7-inch Android tablet has some kind of HD screen, LTE, front-facing camera. Goes on sale November 7th for $250. That's right. For $30 more than a Nexus 7, you can get a vaguely specced Jelly Bean tablet, probably made by Foxconn or Quanta or somebody, that comes with Redbox pre-installed.
Ooh, Redbox. I love Redbox. Nike's Nike Plus Move app has launched, which takes advantage of the iPhone 5S's M7 Motion coprocessor. Specifically, the app harnesses data from the M7 chip to capture your every move, then turning the information into Nike Fuel, which is a unit of measurement that the company uses to track daily activity levels. It's sort of a combination of steps and calories and that sort of thing. Nike Fuel is used in a range of products, including the Nike Fuel Band SE wearable fitness tracker.
Apple's bringing jobs to Mesa, Arizona in the form of a manufacturing facility. The endeavor is in partnership with GT Advanced Technologies, a mineral crystal specialist, and will make sapphire materials for Apple products. All in all, 2,000 jobs will be created, 700 in manufacturing and 1,300 in construction.
Acer Chairman and CEO JT Wang announced he will step down from the post of CEO as of January 1st. Acer reported a net loss of $446 million in Q3, plans to cut 7% of its global workforce. Acer's PC sales dropped 35% in the quarter. The PC market is not rising as a whole, though Dell, HP, and Lenovo all experienced a little bit of growth in their most recent quarters.
You know who also got some growth is T-Mobile. T-Mobile reported third quarter subscriber growth that beat the street. It was the second straight quarter of growth after 4 years of customer losses, so quite a turnaround. T-Mobile US, which is 74% owned by Deutsche Telekom AG, has been pretty vocal in criticizing its bigger rivals like Verizon and AT&T in marketing and positioning itself as the consumer-friendly brand. It added 648,000 net subscribers in the quarter compared with the average expectation for just 444,000 subscribers. This is according to 7 analysts contacted by Reuters.
I want to know what the forecast for Laguerre's crazy statements in the next quarter is going to be. That's what I'm interested in. A couple of years ago, HTC decided it had to make a hero phone to get back on top of its game. Now HTC says, no, that didn't work. We're going to cut operating expenses by around 25% and focus on selling cheaper handsets. That's where the real money is made. HTC confirmed a Q3 net loss of 3 billion new Taiwanese dollars, its first ever quarterly loss. How can they make more money while selling cheaper phones? Volume. HTC CFO Chailin Chang told Reuters, we're looking at a broader product rollout in this quarter. We aim for higher volume into 2014. That will give better profitability.
Good luck with that. And rounding out our earnings palooza, AOL reported its third quarter results. The good news, revenue was up thanks to better advertising sales. The bad news, earnings fell due to issues with AOL property Patch. AOL took a $19 million restructuring charge and a $25 million impairment charge on Patch. That made earnings per share for AOL only 2 cents. Without the charges, EPS would have been 55 cents.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Shutterstock.com. If you're working on something you need an image for, don't risk going out and getting one that's going to get you in trouble. And don't shell out loads of money for something you're going to have to keep paying for if you want to keep using it. Get a royalty-free image for your next creative project, whether it's a website, a publication, an advertisement, a video, or any other type of project from Shutterstock.com. You can choose from over 28 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. Shutterstock sources images from all over the world. They add 20,000 images a day, and they review them. They look at these things and make sure that they're high quality. And they got a bunch of pros in there submitting stuff. So you're always going to find something good. You can search by subject, by color, by file type, by gender, by emotion. I looked one time for my book trailer for an angry picture. It was great. You get like, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of angry people in there to choose from. And you can choose individual image packs or a monthly subscription, whatever fits your needs. Go try it out right now. They have a clip box and a light box, depending on whether you're doing video or images, that you can collect stuff that you think you might need. And you don't have to give them a credit card to use that. Just use the search engine, put some stuff in the light box. Once you decide to purchase, use offer code TNT1113. Remember that, TNT1113. And new accounts get 25% off any package. That's Shutterstock.com. 25% off new accounts. Use offer code TNT1113. Do it now. We thank Shutterstock for their support of Tech News Today. All right, joining us now to gather around the old round table and discuss the stories of the day. Very happy to have managing editor of the Mac Observer, Jeff Gamet, on the show. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going great, and thanks for having me on. You guys rock.
Jeff and I get to hang out on the British Tech Network from time to time on the Big Show, so it's cool to have him over here on TNT as well. Let's start out talking about Google Helpouts. You pay an expert, they help you out. It's not the first company to do this. There's dozens of these startups out there. I guess the difference is Google, right? So they've got all this big data behind them that they can use for curation. And they've got, the search experience and all of that. Plus, they've got Google+. So that's going to be your ID. They've got Google Hangout. That's going to be your video. It's well-tested video. And they've got Google Wallet. So when you want to pay for these things, you've got a trusted payment provider as well. They've got about 1,000 brands partnered up at launch. Folks like Sephora and Sears, And right now, Google is approving every provider. Anybody can sign up, but doesn't mean you'll get to use or to conduct your own help out. You have to be approved by Google. Providers will get an alert on their PC or a text messages when they're needed, and they have 5 minutes to respond, or the session ends up being free. Although if the session was free to begin with, I guess it doesn't really change anything except disappointing your client. They can charge anywhere from free up to $150, actually. And sessions can be charged by the minute. They can be charged by a block of like 30 minutes. And they can be scheduled. If you're not available right now, you can actually go in there and schedule things for the future. So, Jeff, this is pretty ambitious, but Google, you know, they do ambitious things. They float the internet over New Zealand, and they do all kinds of Google Fiber projects. Is this a useful, ambitious project for them?
Well, it could be useful. Okay, here's where I think this is really useful for Google, and it's not as a service to help people learn how to do whatever it is that they want to do. This is really useful for Google as a data mining tool, because now they can find out exactly what it is that people want to know and need to know, and then figure out how to leverage that for themselves as a revenue generating stream. So
that's pretty.
The problem I have initially is, okay, well, they've figured out some launch partners. They've got some brand partners. They've got some individuals. So right away, the service is populated with activity. But if Google has to vet everyone that's going to be involved, particularly experts, that doesn't really scale, certainly not in Google's terms. So how does it get to the point where, I mean, at what point does it become a place where people who aren't really experts in something are giving other people medical advice, and now we have a problem?
Well, and this is HIPAA compliant, by the way, which means that the medical advice that's offered here is always going to have to be approved and heavily curated by Google. I don't know, Sarah. Maybe it's just not going to scale. Maybe it's always going to be a limited pool relative to the general populace of the internet. I mean, 1,000 people is not that small, but maybe it's always going to be like, you know, we only have experts on here, and anybody can submit themselves as an expert, but we're going to vet everybody.
Yeah, I guess specifically because, you know, where do I go to find makeup tips, for example? You know, I mentioned Sephora in the news views. It's like, well, there's a lot of those on YouTube. Well, that's Google property too. So YouTube is a little bit more of like the Wild West of maybe advice. Yeah, right. And this is a little bit more of the true experts can make a little money this way.
Yeah, and it seems like it'll definitely make Google Plus, it'll differentiate it from the other social networks. Because if you go to Facebook, you're seeing all this social media concepts. You're like, here's this great image of us using Tide, like on a beach or something strange. But when you go to Google Plus, you're like, wait, does that business have an area where I can get actual help where I don't have to go to the store? So if it is a large number of companies, including Sears, because Sears, like, they basically do everything anyway, that kind of customer service as opposed to going into the store, I think that can make Google Plus an actual location that people would want to go to, as opposed to the kind of lukewarm response Google Plus has had compared to something like Facebook or Twitter. Like, there's a reason to go now because you can get help from actual licensed people that work for these companies.
I have a concern about how all this plays out. And that concern is that Google tends to treat every product they create as a perpetual beta. So what happens if 6 months, 18 months down the road, Google decides for whatever reason that they're just simply done with this? What about the investment that all these other companies have made to set up their own infrastructure to be able to provide all of this support through Google's service? Are they left just swinging in the wind?
Yeah, you do need a little assurance from Google before you want to stake your claim out here. Although big companies have done it. Like Home Depot is providing free advice. I think that's one of the more compelling stories here is like I'm installing a doorknob or I'm working on the house somewhere. I'm on my phone. I go to Google Hangout. I pull up a Home Depot free advice. I show them the thing and they're like, oh, you need this and this and that. Probably more likely to go to Home Depot to pick it up at that point. It seems like smart marketing. And seems like a compelling way to do it too. All right, let's talk about Dropbox snapping up an e-commerce company. They're snapping up all kinds of weird things, Ayaz.
Yeah, they acquired the 9-person team behind an app called Sold. Now, Sold made an iOS and Android app that helped people sell things. It included a pricing calculator that would determine the price of the item. Sold then handled the selling, the shipping, and the payment side of all of this stuff. In theory, it would just make it a lot easier instead of using Craigslist or using something like eBay. It's supposed to make it simpler. TechCrunch reports that Sold's algorithm crawled top e-commerce sites to find a price, and Sold said its prices were 43% higher than that of Gazelle. The app and service will shut down, though, as the team joins Dropbox. Sold co-founder Tony DiVincenzi says the former Sold team will create a new team within Dropbox, and that's going to create a new Dropbox product. Jeff, what kind of product do you think Dropbox is working on if they just picked up this kind of seller kind of technology?
I think what they're working on is more of a long-term goal. And I think the product they want to give us is a data and service nexus, where Dropbox is the one place you go for all the information that you need to store or need to find. And then the services that would relate to that in any way are part of that as well. So, you know, in the old days of the internet where we had to deal with portal sites for everything, that's kind of what I see Dropbox going towards.
You know, yeah, it's something like that, right? I mean, I'm looking at this. I see Mailbox and Audio Galaxy. I start to think online operating system or some kind of approximation of that. But then I don't see how e-commerce necessarily fits right into that. And that leads more towards not so much operating system as portal. So here's your storage. Here's where you sell things. Here's where you do things. But it's a much better portal than I think Yahoo or Excite or any of those companies tried to be, where they tried to deliver us information. They're saying we're gonna be your toolbox, essentially. Dropbox toolbox.
I don't know. I was thinking if the idea is, if actually Mailbox and maybe Sold, those two properties working together within Dropbox, because if you wanted to sell things to friends or something, you could kind of set it up via attachment, kind of like the way you can send money through Google, through Gmail with Google Wallet, some kind of easier way to run that together, because you could maybe sell digital goods through Mailbox or through your Dropbox, or maybe even music with Audio Galaxy with that acquisition. So I'm not really sure how it's all melding together, but it seems like there's some kind of strategy, and I'm not putting it together. So they also bought Endorse, a company that actually did some loyalty programs, an online coupon kind of deal. And it just, I'm not seeing how they're fitting together. Maybe they're just doing acqui-hires and they're just simply saying, these guys are smart, we can come up with something else.
Yeah, I'm really racking my brain. I mean, I love Dropbox as a product. I actually think that Dropbox has made some really smart acquisitions as of late. I can't see how anything like the Sold product, the former Sold product, could be integrated into Mailbox. Maybe I'm not thinking crazy enough, but I don't know.
Your item has been sold. Check in your mail. I don't know.
Yeah, but still, I mean, the thing about Dropbox is, besides the fact that you can share Dropbox folders, and I do that for certain folders, you know, kind of like music-based stuff, it's a very personal cloud locker. So the product would have to change a lot for it to be some sort of like a marketplace. That's very far away from what Dropbox is to me, at least now.
And it kind of sucks that they shut down Sold, right?
Yeah.
Like Sold was a great idea anyway. Or you don't care. You didn't think it was that big of a thing?
I never used it.
Yeah. I would have used it now that I've learned about it, but now it's too late because they're like, no, we're gone now.
Yeah,
I hate it when companies acquire something.
I'd never heard of it. And I mean, I study iOS apps for a living, so, you know, I don't know. I don't know where I've been, but it's
the
not
idea of
something
me
that
saying,
I've used.
I want to sell this thing, you do all the hard work for me, and then I get money. I love that. That's why I use Gazelle.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are that is a business model that, you know, is replicated off in a variety of services. So it's not as if Sold is the only company that does it well. But yeah, maybe Dropbox just wants that technology just to have.
You know, there were some edge cases of people using Dropbox to host websites and things like that, where you could have access because they would share it and have it available in those folders. Dropbox, I think, killed that functionality with the upgrades, but maybe it's less personal than we think. Maybe Dropbox is going to get wider and wider. Maybe it is that mobile. Maybe it is an operating system, like you're saying, Tom, or Portal. I don't know, but it's really interesting to see what's going to come out of this, because I don't think Dropbox has done anything with Audio Galaxy. I haven't seen any new upgrades with music, so how long it'll take for a product to finally come out, I don't know.
We do seem to have moved into the consolidation phase of the app generation. I don't know if we ever got a good name like Web 2.0 for this phase of technology, but apps are changing, getting snapped up, consolidating, and Vidi is one of them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would call this era of ours a bubble, Tom. But
Yeah, okay.
a company called Vidi, which was actually on a crazy tear. It had a lot to do with the fact that it was part of Facebook's Open Graph. So got a lot of users in a very short amount of time. It was all about, shooting videos and sharing them socially in a very Instagram type model, but for videos. Cinemagram was another one that got thrown in the bundle with Vidi. It raised a ton of money. That social traffic ended up plateauing and then falling. You had some executive departures. You had some layoffs. Well, the team is building some products again, and they've kind of reorged. There's about a team of 12, and they've rebranded the parent company, Supernova. They're still supporting the Vidi app. It hasn't been pulled. And what you do with that is you can, upload photos from your camera roll and send them into sort of creative little vignettes. Vidi says, actually, we've been seeing some higher engagement. The company, Supernova, now is saying the September monthly active users were higher than the August's. October's were 3 times larger than they were 6 months earlier. So it seems to be rebounding a little bit, and that might have something to do with the fact that, well, maybe there's more renewed interest in videos in general because you've got Instagram video and Vine. Those are competitors, but maybe it kind of helps with the genre in general. But the company now has a couple new apps that it's launching. Slow motion video sharing app called Epic. It took me a while to find it in the App Store. I had to search for Epic and then Vidi, I think. And what this does is if you've got one of the newest iPhones, the 5C, the app will capture 2 seconds of video at 120 frames per second. But on older phones, I believe you have to have a 4S or newer. It'll do 4 seconds at 60 frames per second. So that slows the video down by half. But it also kind of gets everybody into that cool new, hey, slow-mo is a big deal. If you don't have the latest phone, this is a great app for you. Another app that the company's working on is actually more interesting to me. It's called Click, as in, a friend click. So users can participate in messaging with friends. It's group messaging. And it's sort of like send a photo, add stickers, scribbles, or text. You might be rolling your eyes and saying how awful. But what's interesting is that as a group, let's say everyone on the Tech News Today team right now, we're all in a group. We don't know who's sending it. We just know who the members of the group are. So there's a little bit of that anonymous Snapchat-y type of a thing going on, but for a group rather than a one-to-one. I don't know. I mean, all of these sound kind of interesting. Jeff, do you hear any of this and say, aha, the team at Vidi has cracked the code?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm kind of jaded about all the video app things and video social networking things. There's just so many out there. The market is so saturated. And since they're not interacting with each other, what a pain, because now every time you go to use one service to do all your little video sharing stuff, you find out your friends are on a different one. So now you have like 5 different video sharing apps on your phone, and you have to remember which group you're with, so you know which place to send a photo or a video to. And I think I'm kind of burned out on the whole video social sharing thing.
Sometimes I just want to see the death of apps because these apps tend to make things that were easier on the web harder because now we have to do them in an app. And so we've limited them. And granted, Twitter limited something artificially with 140 characters that ended up, I think, being a kind of a force for creativity. But that doesn't mean every limit is a force for creativity. And some of these apps strike me as that, just sort of like, well, you're doing 1 or 2 things when what I would really like is just like a really great camera app, which those exist. So maybe I'm also just old and jaded as well, but they don't trip my triggers either.
Yeah, these kids need to get off my lawn.
Well, this
not
is
taking
such a
slow-mo pictures of.
I just think that this is a great example of, it's like, okay, so company builds product, which is an app, right? Company raises a bunch of money, has, this crazy growth. Everyone says this growth is not sustainable, and it isn't. Company has to fire a bunch of people, reorg, and then it's like, well, now what? Okay, you have different products. You're obviously creative people. You're working on stuff, but how long is it sustainable? The money has to run out at some point, and there are a lot of companies like this.
Yeah, and that's where the bubble comment comes in, right?
Right.
We've come full circle here. And I think it is a bubble because this is what the tech industry does. It's actually what every industry does is they catch on to a hot term, whether it's portals or e-commerce or podcasting or now apps. And so they throw a bunch of money at anybody who uses that word. And now we're starting to see the shakeout of that. And the video is, I think, a good example of a company that's trying to navigate that transition and stay afloat rather than just being acqui-hired like some of those company Dropbox bought or totally go and bust. Let's take a break.
If they can find a way.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Yeah, finish it off there.
Oh, I'll be fast. If they can find a way to show that they're viable long term, I would consider using a service like Vidi. But we invest so much time in using these things, and then we get shut out when they close down or get bought out and rolled into something else. So,
I've been burned before. Yeah. It's hard for me
It's hard to get excited.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break and thank one of our sponsors, ProXPN. You heard a bunch of leaks today about surveillance and about security. You hear it all the time. And you've probably seen those commercials on TV showing bad things happening when you're out using public Wi-Fi. Well, I use VPN. It's one of the reasons that I use it is that I can protect my connection and make sure the snoopers, when I'm out in the public using Wi-Fi, and then be able to use a little bit of public Wi-Fi, at least have a much harder time getting into my packets. It's not as easy as running some off-the-shelf script. ProXPN is a global VPN that works with almost any internet connection and creates a secure encrypted tunnel. Well, all your online data passes through that, 512-bit encryption. Works by OpenVPN or PPTP. You get to choose. And it protects you. Your ISP can't see what you're doing. The guy in the coffee shop can't see what you're doing. Can't even tell what part of the world you're in. And they have software for Windows and Mac, advanced controls letting you select the programs and the ports you want to anonymously route through ProXPN's servers. There's a new ProXPN app for Android in the Google Play Store that supports OpenVPN. You can configure it for Linux. I've got it running on all my machines, all my phones, all my tablets, world-class customer support. So why not check it out? Go to proxpn.com/twit for more information and to sign up. ProXPN premium accounts are normally $9.95 a month or $74.95 for an entire year. But we've got a special offer. Use the code TNT to receive 20% off the lifetime of your account. That's less than $5 a month on the yearly plan. And if you're not satisfied, you can cancel within 7 days, get a full refund. So you might as well try it out. $5 a month, not bad for a little security, a little VPN. Go to proxpn.com/twit. and sign up with the code TNT. We thank ProXPN for their support of Tech News Today. Pew Research Center always has the best studies. They're very rigorous in their methods, and they always have interesting results. They did a study on Twitter and news, found out that 16% of U.S. adults use Twitter. 8% of U.S. adults get news on Twitter. So about half the people that use Twitter get news there. That compares to 30% of U.S. adults who say they get news on Facebook, 8% to 30%. So a lot more people getting their news on Facebook than on Twitter. Now, half of the Twitter news consumers are between 18 and 29 years old. 40% of the Twitter news consumers have at least a bachelor's degree, and 48% are likely to earn more than $75,000 a year. So you're young, you're smart, and you're rich if you're getting your news on Twitter. I don't know if doing that, I don't know if the converse works, but 85% of Twitter's new consumers are also mobile. They're getting their news on mobile compared to 40% of the general population getting news on mobile. And the other thing Pew did is they analyzed the information shared. Now, some of it was probably, you could have guessed. The most of the stuff shared is breaking news. The opinions about the news changes over time. Those are things you might have anticipated. They're just showing, yep, what we thought was true is true. But they said Twitter sentiment often doesn't match the general population sentiment. So looking to Twitter to find out what people think, for instance, Ron Paul won the Twitter primary, is not going to give you real world results. A lot of people talk about Twitter as a news source, or Twitter being the new newspaper, or Twitter being the new news TV. Jeff, is this just a plaything of the young, rich, and smart and mobile?
It's all a plaything. It doesn't matter if it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're all playthings. It's just we get more excited about some playthings at certain times, and then other times it's different ones. The fact that Twitter isn't as much of a news source as people make it out to be, that doesn't surprise me. Twitter is a very popular topic right now anyhow, So, of course, there's a lot of focus on it as a news source, regardless of how many people are actually getting information there. And later on, it will be something else that gets focused on. The way I see it, Twitter is a great place to go when you went up-to-date instant information, regardless of whether or not it's accurate. And then Facebook is where you go when you want to hear the discussions about whatever the current news is, regardless of whether or not you think the people that are sharing know what they're talking about.
You guys get, I know you get news off of Twitter. Do you consider it your main news source?
Oh, absolutely not. Because the thing is, Twitter is just a bunch, it's like 140 characters, and I know they're doing lots of things to expand the content you can see in these tweets, but it's effectively, I almost think of it sometimes like RSS, where I could just click a link easily, and I have a bunch of sources or trusted friends who will link to really interesting stories. So while I don't think of it as a news source, more like I've curated an RSS feed again. Facebook, I could see being a lot more for news content, considering you can write a lot more in there, and you can jump out of Facebook in and out a lot easier. But I just don't consider it a primary news source because it can't fully contain a story. And as we do on this show, we have to I know I have to read several stories to understand if this one report is accurate. So I can't just simply click.
No. So for the exact same reason, it is my number one news source. Exactly.
That's funny.
First thing I do, wake up in the morning, roll over, grab my phone, launch Twitter, make sure nothing's burning down, right? And if there's something that seems to be, this is a big story, then I have a lot of tiny little links to stories at publications because I follow a lot of reporters or people who would be sharing this sort of thing. I mean, it is absolutely my number one news source, and it is the most real-time source of information that I can get. You see stuff on Twitter before the New York Times gets, updated, even in their digital format. I think that it's definitely a particular way to consume news. It's not for everybody. It can be a little discombobulated. Stuff breaks on Twitter and then gets retracted, or tweets get deleted, that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of a, it's a free for all. But I love that about Twitter. Then again, this is my job. So if it was just me hanging out thinking, is Twitter a fun place to catch up on some news? I think that it takes a certain amount of, a bit of like a news learning curve in order to feel like this is the place for me.
No. That is exactly why I don't. I'm not even kidding you. That is exactly why I don't use Twitter as my main news source, because it is my job. And I feel like I've got to see everything. And on Twitter, I'm going to miss stuff. It just flies by. It's too fast. There's too much going on there. So I want an RSS feed that I can control and know what I've read and what I haven't. And with Twitter, I kind of use that as my casual, I find some interesting things out there sometimes, but that's not my news source. That's just supplemental.
Supplemental, there you go. That you nailed it. And I think it's a very important supplemental news source, because there's a lot of news stories that hit the internet or TV or radio that are really incomplete. And a perfect example is when we had the big flooding here in Colorado several weeks ago, and I was trapped up in Estes Park through the whole thing. The news that was going out about what was happening was very candy-coated. So I put on my my hiking boots and my Gore-Tex jacket, and I walked out into the storm, and I started taking photos and putting them on Twitter so people could see what was really happening. And it's an empowering tool, and in that sense, it's a great supplement to the information that's already out there. And anyone with a smartphone and a 3G or LTE connection can go out and supplement the news that's already there.
If you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own.
There you go.
All right. There's a interesting product in the news today, actually, called Stream Nation. Kind of controversial, but cool in what it does, I guess.
So Stream Nation has been around for a little bit. It's actually just updated its service to 2.0. And what it is, it lets you store your photos and videos online and share them with friends. Now, that sounds pretty boring. But what sets them apart is that Stream Nation invites you to upload your ripped DVDs and other content. The service is headed by Jonathan Benasaya, who was also the co-founder of Deezer, the music streaming service. And here's how this works. When someone watches a video that you've uploaded, no one else can watch that video at the same time. It's kind of like when you loan out a Kindle book, you lose access to that. And he says that they've recreated physical borrowing and digital with the same restrictions. He also says there's no copy involved, so you're not distributing multiple copies. This is his theory that this service won't get shut down. Stream Nation even makes your ripped videos look pretty by pulling in metadata and poster art from IMDb and other sources. And they do charge you for this $4 a month for 100 gigabytes of space, $10 for 500 gigabytes, $14 a month for 1 terabyte, and $19 for unlimited per month. Jeff, digital borrowing of movies, is this a viable business, or is this going to get shut down within the year?
Oh my God, it's so getting shut down. But I wish it wouldn't. This is really cool because we have services like Netflix and the whole Amazon streaming video thing where we can watch all kinds of movies. But there are so many movies that aren't available for us to stream through these other services. And people have already gone out and bought all these really obscure, awesome movies that we all want, or at least a handful of people want to watch. And this would be a great way to have access to that kind of content. But expecting Stream Nation to be able to stay alive, as much as I would love them to stick around, they're so getting shut down.
And also, this sort of... Oh, sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I find that services like this, just if you kind of think about who are the people who have the movie collections versus the people who are like, I don't know, I don't want to store anything, or music or photos. It always kind of turns into like somebody always has all the goods and everybody else wants to just borrow that kind of thing. So in a way, I feel like the business model is set up based on all of us just having this wealth of videos and all sorts of great stuff to share, and it's like, I don't have any ripped videos to share with anybody. So, what help am I? It's awesome if I can get them from my friends, but it's not really a two-way street.
This would be brilliant if we had a different landscape. If most videos online were DRM free, and Stream Nation partnered up with the producers and said, we're going to share analytics with you. We'll cut you in a royalty check based on knowing what's getting streamed around here. This would be great for everybody, but we don't have that. We have a much more punitive copyright landscape. So instead, I think Jeff's right. They're going to go after this. It's going to be harder to shut these guys down. They're just sharing files between people, and Dropbox does the same thing. You can share a link, right? And you can stream that link to a mobile device without actually downloading it. I think where they're going to probably get nailed is inducement. The fact that they're saying your ripped videos is, even though not all ripped videos are necessarily illegal, the studios are probably going to come in and say, like, well, what ripped videos are they talking about? They're going to find some examples of people doing this, and they're going to say you're inducing piracy by this service. I think that's probably their Achilles heel. But otherwise, this is an example of the kind of thing we should have seen this a long time ago. This is not new technology, but it takes somebody with Jonathan Benassaya to kind of figure out, like, do I think I can get away with this? And that's not the way it should work. Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of what Aereo is pulling off currently. This idea of like, do we have a loophole? Can we figure this out? Or actually, not do we have a loophole? Can we legally do this? Forget this loophole nonsense. It's actually the right way to do something. This idea that you can't share a copy, but you've already made a copy of that DVD, which is on its face, that's infringement right there, even though there's fair use exceptions for that. So it's really kind of tricky unless somebody can look at those files. Maybe they're going to say Stream Nation doesn't look at the files. They don't even know what it is. I mean, it's not like you can't make a DVD that has no DRM, because there would be no issue there, no DMCA violation if you ripped it. So I like the fact it exists. It's going to get challenged, and I want to see it succeed, because this seems like something that we should be able to do. So why not try it? Although I think they're going to get crushed. I'm sorry.
Let's finish up with something that's likely not to be all that controversial. New Google Search iOS app getting its update today. Sarah, what are we getting?
Well, we're getting something that actually works a lot more like the Android version, which has been quite a bit ahead for some time. The iOS app for iPhone 4S or later, although at this point, it covers a lot of people. You can now do things like say, "Okay, Google," to begin a voice search. This is, of course, something that users have been able to do with Google Now on Android devices for a long time. This is the Google Search app in iOS. It's 3.1.0, and it includes things like notifications for upcoming events or flights, public transit. You can get notifications for pretty much anything, really. Delayed flights, how long you have to catch a train, upcoming appointment reminders. You can set reminders for yourself within the app. Also kind of fun stuff like you can set reminders for, hey, my favorite musician is Lady Gaga, and when is she coming through town, type of a thing. That's not true about me, by the way, but it might be about somebody. Or TV shows, or some sort of something that's being released on Netflix. New cards in the app help display info for movie and event tickets, boarding passes, reservation confirmations, all of that good stuff. I mean, anybody who's familiar with the way that Google now works and is on iOS is going to be extremely happy with this app update. I played around with it quite a bit this morning, and I mean, it really is amazing how responsive the app is when I say "Okay, Google," and then I search for something with my voice, and then I get responses. It's great. In fact, to the point where I'm like, well, why would I use this instead of Siri? And then I realize I'll say, Siri, open up Google Search, open Google Search. And then from that point, I actually have a better way to search for stuff. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I should ask Jason. Jason, do you think that this makes it seem like it's closer to the Android experience, which has always been better?
Absolutely. I mean, this brings more of the functionality. I think the difference, if there's a difference between the two right now, and particularly with the recent KitKat release, is the embedded kind of aspect of Google Now in the OS on Android versus running as an app on iOS. Now on Android, I mean, it's practically search and the launcher are the same thing, and they're all embedded into itself. So if you're on the home screen launcher, you're in Google Now and you can do a voice search at any point. I imagine on iOS, you still have to launch the app or call the voice command through Siri to get there. Having that immediate access is pretty awesome because you're more likely to use it on a whim and not have to think about, well, what do I have to do to launch it and everything. But aside from that kind of easy access, having access to the information that it pulls, it really does look like iOS is even closer to what's being offered on Android, but I don't know exactly what the differences are, like what's omitted at this point on iOS.
Jeff, have you had a chance to play around or thoughts on Google Search versus Google Now?
I haven't had a chance to dive into the new stuff yet, but I'm excited about it, and I really want to see this be amazingly successful. And I know that when I use Google Now and Google Search, that I'm just handing over my entire life to Google, and they know more about me than I do. But in this case, at least I'm getting something back for it because Google is actually feeding back to me useful information. And I love the whole anticipatory part of this instead of reactionary, where it all figures out what I'm doing and then can offer me up information that's relevant to whatever it is. Like if I'm leaving, telling me that I should take a different route because my normal route, there's a traffic accident. I just love this whole idea. And I wish there was a way to integrate this at the system level in iOS. And I know that will never happen. So now I look at it as this is a great competition thing to really spur Apple into making Siri far more useful. And that's great because in the end, the competition is good for all of us end users.
The apps that Google makes for iOS they almost sometimes seems not in their best interest, because by integrating their notifications with that Today screen that Apple has, it's very similar to using just like an Android phone. You'd have that Google Now widget on the front of your on your lock screen. It's pretty close. It's not going to be as baked in because Apple's going to be closed off, but they're going to be gaining tons of data. That's the real thing they want at the end of the day. Whether Android is successful when you move over to that device because, it has a better integrated version of this, I don't think Google cares because they're building out their universe and they're building out so much data. That's like one of the bigger reasons why I have an Android phone is because I love getting all my Google Now stuff that way. Now that it's kind of built into iOS, they seem relatively the same as opposed to the way you see it. I mean, it doesn't look like cards. It's the Today screen, but it's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, Google doesn't care as long as they're getting that search traffic and that information, that always active information on you. Regardless, on Android, it's more integrated into the OS. And like you said, that probably won't happen on iOS for a long time. Maybe someday eventually there'll be the capability to do that. That'll differentiate it for Google. But ultimately, they're getting the data. That's what is most important to Google.
It's one of my biggest problems with iOS is the fact that you can't do that. You can't put those things in there. But it's also one of the advantages for iOS for a lot of people. So there you have it. Let's fire up one of the most exciting randomizers in weeks. At least the vote was exciting. There was electioneering going on in the chat room over the straw poll today. Make a computer monitor that only you can see just barely edged out by 2 votes.
No kidding.
To India launches spacecraft to Mars. Several times those two were tied throughout this. India has successfully launched a spacecraft going to the red planet. That's Mars, if you didn't know. The Mars orbiter mission took off at 9:08 GMT from the Satish Dhawan Space Center on the country's east coast, making India the 4th nation to send a probe to Mars, joining U.S., Russia, and European Space Agency. So congrats, India space program. That's pretty awesome. They're going to have a probe in orbit over Mars. Come on, you guys. Congratulate India.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
I know.
India.
Hooray, India.
Doesn't take
Hugs to
anything away
India.
from us. Make a computer monitor that only you could see was pretty cool, though. You rip off the polarization screen, and then you make glasses out of it. Then you wear the glasses. Kind of nifty. Like that. All right, let's see what's on the go.
From November 3rd to November 9th, so from the past to the future, Target is running an in-store promotion for trading in. So if you participate in the trade-in program, you will get a gift card worth at least $200 for any iPad. That includes first-gen iPads. Not a bad deal. Tomorrow, Fast Company's Innovation Uncensored conference is happening in San Francisco. Also, starting tomorrow, running through the 7th, the Tech Policy Summit is happening in Napa, California. And also running tomorrow and through the 7th is AdTech in New York City.
Check it all out. Got any emails today?
Incoming message.
I think we do. We got one from Harish, who writes in, "Hey, TNT crew, I'm not sure if anyone else caught on to this, but what if the Google barge wasn't a barge at all, but instead, what if it's the Google island/country that Larry Page talked about at Google I.O.? And he gave us a link to a Verge article. Think about it. 1, it's built by Google X. 2, entries by invite only. 3, it's being personally directed by Sergey Brin. And 4, it is made of interchangeable shipping containers, i.e. new container for new experiments. Sounds like a floating Google island to me." I think he might be onto something.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot all about that. What did he say specifically? The pace of change is increasing. We haven't adapted to systems. Maybe we can set aside a part of the world, some safe places where we can try things and not have to deploy to the entire world. You know what? These barges could be all 3. They could be a floating data center because that fits in with the island country. It's going to need a data center. And then they're temporarily a Google Glass showcase to as a cover story as they travel around and get out of the United States, collect their citizens. I think he's on to something.
And then, of course, the country's beta, so eventually all the people have to leave.
Right. Well,
We no longer
shut it
support
down.
that container. You have to
we're
leave
kicking
container
everybody
6.
out. We're starting.
Yeah, everybody who gets kicked out is what happens.
It's Google
Suddenly.
Reader.
Or you're opted into
It's
Google
the
Buzz.
Google Reader of countries. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you, Jeff Gamet. Fabulous having you on Tech News today. Hope you can come back soon. Let folks know what you're up to over there at Mac Observer.
Well, okay. Well, first, thanks for having me on. It was an absolute blast, and I would love to come back again. And head over to Mac Observer because we're still working on getting more reviews up for all the new stuff that Apple has announced. I will have an iPad Air review up very soon as well.
Excellent.
And,
Any
go check
early
this out.
hints on what you think?
I'll give you the spoiler. I love it. And then you'll have to come to the site and read my review to see exactly why I love it.
Perfect. MacObserver.com. Also, don't forget, folks, it's time for Twit's annual audience survey. We need to hear from you. Twit.tv/survey. Let us know what you think. Helps us make a better Twit. Only takes you a couple minutes, too. It's not one of those 30-minute surveys. It's going to suck you in all day. And your feedback just makes things better over here. We thank you for your continued support. Twit.tv/survey. Don't forget, you can submit stories and vote on the story coverage at technewstoday.reddit.com. We do take a look at it. We let people know. I was letting people know in the comments, for instance, on a particular story that was getting a lot of votes, why I wasn't going to pick it for the show. Because it's not a democracy, but this is important for us to know what you guys are interested in. So go to technewstoday.reddit.com, make your opinions heard. You can email us, TNT@twit.tv, give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/technewstoday. And of course, subscribe to the podcast, get the show notes and all of that good stuff at twit.tv/TNT. Lance Ulanoff joins us tomorrow. Love having Lance on the show. We'll see you then.